Yo, wow. Yo, how's it going, everybody? It's MacklinGaming. Today I'm going to be reviewing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is the second part of a trilogy which remakes the original Final Fantasy VII for the PlayStation 1, the first 3D Final Fantasy, and I think some think one of the best Final Fantasies ever made. And my goodness, this is an incredible game that has exceeded my expectations. As you've seen in the title, I put in right now over 60 hours, closer to 70 hours of this game, and it is just an awesome JRPG. One of the best JRPGs I think I played ever, certainly in the last 5 to 10 years. So let me give you a little backstory here. When I heard that Final Fantasy Rebirth was going to come out in late February, I started playing Crisis Core, which is the prequel to Final Fantasy VII. And that was an insane experience. Like, the story of that game absolutely like crushed me. You meet Zack, and I really dug his character. I loved Zack, and that ending, I won't spoil the ending, but it's one of the saddest video game endings, I think, up there with like Red Dead Redemption, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Last of Us, right? So I loved Crisis Core. That was an awesome little game. The gameplay is, dated a bit. It originally came out on a PSP, so it was originally a handheld game. So what can you do? They up-res the graphics and the animations a bit, I think. But the game was mostly just that original PSP game with a better like coat of paint. But it doesn't matter. That storyline was amazing. And after that, I played Final Fantasy Remake, the first part. So there's a lot of like prerequisites you might have to play in order to get into Rebirth here. But, I was up for it. So the last month or two, I've been playing Crisis Core and then Final Fantasy Remake and then Rebirth, right? And so, as the title of the video says, I'm about 60 hours, closer to 70 hours into Rebirth, and I can safely say it is the best so far of those three games I've mentioned, and it is one of the best JRPGs I think I've played since Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and I don't think I've played a better one like before that. Maybe Chrono Trigger. But Rebirth is the only one that's gone open world in this series so far. So it's like, for me, it hits all the right notes. I mean, you've got the first opening region of the map, which, yeah, I guess you could kind of say the game is like open zone because you have like multiple different huge open worlds in the map. And in each of these big regions, you've got all these little map markers to explore. And I know people kind of hate on open world games these days because it's like you just go from one map marker to the next and you kind of repeat these little activities, but for me it doesn't really matter. I enjoy that kind of gameplay, and I think in Rebirth they vary each little open world activity enough to where it stays fun. So what you have are all these little things called world intel, and so you're kind of reporting to this goofy little kid named Chadley, which I think is a funny name, little Chad, and it's called World Intel. So what you do is you go and you can either fight like a really tough group of enemies, or you can go do a little mini game that ends up weakening the summons, like the classic summons of Final Fantasy. You've got, Titan, Bahamut, the Phoenix, right? So you've got like all of these summons that you can gather, and you weaken them first, and then you go and you fight them in this like VR space, and if you beat them you get to use them as your own summon, and I think that's super cool. You can go wrangling chocobos and riding chocobos around the huge open world, which I think is really fun. Each chocobo has a different little like quirk to it, has a different ability really to help you traverse the map. And so I find all of the little open world activities a lot of fun. And I know some people think those things get repetitive, but I think there's enough variation there. So it's like a really good time. Then you've got the combat, which is just super fun. It's very similar to Final Fantasy Remake combat, You have your materia and you have your abilities, but they've totally added like the best new ideas to the game, which are synergy abilities and synergy skills. The skills you can use pretty much for free whenever you want in combat, but synergy abilities, you have to use your regular abilities and build up this gauge, and then you spend all those ATB gauges to unleash a super strong attack with your synergy abilities. And it's like you have to do each one of these in tandem with another character in the game, so in your party. So you've got Barret and Tifa and Cloud, and then you've got Aerith and Red, and each one of these characters can like combine their powers for a second, and you get this insane animation, and they just go to town on the enemy. And some of them are like funny, some of them are really badass. And so these synergy abilities, I think, add an awesome extra element to the combat. And so for me, the combat is better than any of the previous remake Crisis Core. You know, it holds up against Final Fantasy XVI's combat, which is really sick too. But yeah, I'm really enjoying the combat of this game so far. So since I was already playing Crisis Core and then Final Fantasy Remake Part 1, I'm super invested into the story, and the story of this game just keeps it going. It's just as good as the other two games, if not some parts hit even deeper, because you've got all these side stories with all those characters I just mentioned. Like Barret has a really intense like side quest about all of his backstory, and Red has a really funny like twist to his side story, and Tifa has a shocker. I didn't know if it was in the original Final Fantasy VII what happens to her. Like each one of these characters you just get so invested in because you find out more about their backstory and the way they interact with each other, like all the small talk when you're running around in the world, and the way you can do these little side quests. There's a bunch of side quests, and they kind of center around one of the side characters, and at the end of it, your bond can grow deeper with each of your friends in the party, right? So it's really worth it to do the side quests to see like their little happiness symbol go up, and you find out more about them that way as well. But the way you can just build bonds between your party members, and then like these really intense moments happen in the story, in the main story, and it just like throws you for a loop, and it's really engaging, I think. So, you know, no spoilers in the main story, but I just hit a part in chapter 10 that was like so deep and emotionally moving. They pretty much explain how the universe works and how their world functions, and it's very similar to like how ours it does in real life. So that was a really powerful moment, and loving the story so far. I hear there's a big climactic finish, and you know something's gonna happen. I don't know what it is yet. I honestly haven't played through the entirety of Final Fantasy VII, the original. So I've heard some things about, you know, who dies and all that, but I hear they're trying to write their own new storyline with this game. That's a big part of the story in the trilogy here, the remake trilogy, is that things aren't going to happen exactly the way they happened in the original game. And I think that's pretty cool. So I don't know what's going to happen next, but I'm here for it. Now, I've heard people say like things they don't like about the game would be there's a lot of padding. You know, the game can really go on for a long time. It doesn't matter to me. I'm really digging it. I enjoy the little side quests and all the goofy adventures that these people are going on together. But yeah, it's a long game, so you gotta really be ready to put in the time and, you know, grind it out to the end. But overall, I can't think of many things to say that are negatives about the game. There's some cheesy dialogue, but that's to be expected in any JRPG. You know, I think if you're into it, it just goes right by you, and like the real genuine moments, they hit right on in this game. So it's a really strong game. I want to say it's a masterpiece, but you know, I think one other little negative about it would be the performance of the game. People have been saying, you know, the actual 60 frames per second performance mode just doesn't look good at all visually, and I agree. Like, I usually play my games at 60 FPS, but it's just too blurry. I hear there's going to be a update though. They're going to fix that, and you know, maybe it'll be better. But I've been playing the whole game at 30 frames per second, and my eyes got used to it, and it looks great. I'm enjoying it. Like, for me, it's not a problem, but I know for a lot of people that can be a big no-no. You know, got to play at least 60 frames per second, otherwise they're not going to touch the game. And that's fair. It's really pushing the PS5, it looks like. You know, there's big crowds and insane environments. So that would be one negative, but for me, it's really not a huge factor. All right, that's about all I have to say so far about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. What are your thoughts on the game so far? Have you played it? Are you enjoying it? How does it compare to the original? Let me know down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.